What if the most powerful ruler in the entire galaxy was looking for her daughters, and the only thing standing between her and them was one ordinary human man? No weapons, no army, no special powers, just a man who made a choice. And that choice changed everything. Tonight, we are telling you a story that will make you proud to be human. A story about what happens when strength is not measured in firepower or fleet size, but in something much harder to find. Loyalty. This is the story of Marcus Cole, a quiet man, a forgotten man, a man the universe never expected anything from. But the universe was wrong, because 3 lost alien princesses found him first. And when their Empress mother finally tracked them down, she did not find what she expected. She found something that shook the foundations of her entire empire. Tonight, we break this story into 5 parts. Each part will hit harder than the last. Stay until the end, because the final twist will completely change how you see everything. Let me show you exactly how this happened. Marcus Cole lived alone. That was just a fact of his life. Not something he complained about. Not something he talked about. It was just the way things were, and Marcus had made peace with it a long time ago. He lived on the edge of a small town in rural Montana. The kind of town where everyone knew everyone. The kind of town where strangers stood out immediately. He had a small house with a crooked porch, a wood-burning stove that took 3 tries to light every morning, and a truck that was older than most of the people he knew. He worked night shifts at a regional power grid station. Alone, mostly, watching monitors, making sure the lights stayed on for people who never thought about where their electricity came from. He liked the quiet. He liked knowing that his work mattered even if nobody ever said thank you. Marcus was 42 years old. He had served 6 years in the military before an injury ended his career. After that, he drifted for a while, tried a few different things. Nothing stuck. Eventually, Montana became home because it was far from everything and close to nothing, and that suited him just fine. He had no family left to speak of. His mother passed when he was 30. His father had left long before that. He had one old friend named Danny who called every few months, mostly to talk about football. That was his world. Small, quiet, contained. He did not consider himself special. He was right, in most ways. But there was one thing about Marcus that set him apart from almost every other person on Earth. He never walked past something that needed help. Not ever. It did not matter what it was. A stray dog on the highway. A woman with a flat tire in the rain. A kid sitting outside a gas station at midnight looking scared. Marcus always stopped. Marcus always helped. He never thought about whether it was convenient. He never thought about the risk. He just saw something that needed fixing, and he fixed it. That quality sounds simple. It sounds ordinary, but it is actually extraordinarily rare. And the universe noticed. It was a Thursday night in October when everything changed. Marcus was driving home from his shift at around 2 in the morning. The sky above Montana was enormous and full of stars the way it always is out there, far from city lights. He had his window down slightly because he liked the cold air on the drive home. It helped him stay alert. He almost missed it. A flash of light in the tree line about a quarter mile off the road. Not lightning. Not a reflection. Something else. Something that left a trail of faint blue smoke curling up into the dark sky. Marcus pulled over. He sat there for a moment. His brain was doing the sensible thing. His brain was telling him to keep driving. His brain was listing all the perfectly reasonable explanations. A meteor. A small plane. Some kind of flare. But his gut was saying something different. His gut was saying something was wrong. Something was hurt. He got out of the truck. He grabbed his work flashlight and his old jacket, and he walked into those trees. The ground was frozen, and it cracked under his boots. The beam of his flashlight cut through the dark between the pines. The blue smoke smell was strange. Not burning. Not chemical. Something almost like ocean air, mixed with something else he had no word for. He walked about 200 yards inches. And then he stopped. There were 3 of them. They were young. That was the first thing he registered. Whatever they were, wherever they came from, they were young. They were huddled together against the base of a massive pine tree. Their skin was pale blue, like shallow ocean water in sunlight. Their ears came to soft points. Their eyes, when the flashlight hit them, reflected back at him like deep pools of violet and silver. They were terrified. One of them had a cut on her arm. Dark gold blood was soaking through what looked like incredibly thin silver material wrapped around her body. Another had her arms around the smallest one, who was shaking hard. They stared at him. He stared at them. And then Marcus Cole did exactly what Marcus Cole always did. He took off his jacket. He stepped forward slowly, the way you approach something frightened, and he held it out toward the injured one. His voice was calm, lower than normal. "You're okay," he said. "I've got you." He had no idea what he had just started. He did not know they were royalty. That came later. Much later. That first night, all Marcus knew was that 3 young alien girls were in the woods outside his house. One of them was injured. All of them were terrified, and he was the only one there. He brought them inside. He knew, somewhere in the back of his mind, that this was the kind of decision that changes a life forever. He thought about it for exactly 4 seconds. Then he opened his front door and gestured for them to follow. They hesitated. The tallest one, the one who seemed to be in charge, watched him for a long moment. Her violet eyes scanned him with an intensity that felt like more than just looking. It felt like reading, like she was assessing every layer of him at once. Whatever she found, it was enough. She nodded to the other 2, and they stepped inside. Marcus cleared his kitchen table and found his old first aid kit. The injured one, the middle-sized girl, held her arm out when he approached. She watched every move he made. He cleaned the cut carefully. He wrapped it with clean bandaging. She made no sound throughout. But when he finished and looked up, she was watching him with those silver-violet eyes, and something in her expression had shifted. Not fear anymore. Something more like wonder. He made them food. It was the only thing he knew to do. He scrambled eggs and made toast and put it on the table in front of them, and pointed at it and made eating gestures because he had absolutely no idea if they spoke English or anything close to it. The smallest one reached out and touched the toast first. She sniffed it. She took a tiny bite. Her eyes went wide. She took a much larger bite. The other 2 exchanged a glance, and then they all started eating, and Marcus leaned against his counter and watched them and felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Useful. Over the next several days, communication came in pieces. The tallest one learned English fastest. She seemed to absorb it at an almost frightening speed. Within 4 days, she could hold a basic conversation. Within a week, she was speaking in full sentences with almost no errors. She told him her name was Syrah. She told him the middle one was Vale. She told him the smallest, who giggled every time the toaster made its noise, was Lyra. She did not tell him who they were. Not yet. She told him they could not go back. Not right now. Not until something was resolved. She did not explain what that something was. She watched his face carefully when she said it, looking for suspicion or impatience, or the moment he would tell them they needed to leave. That moment never came. Marcus just nodded. "Okay," he said. "You stay until it's safe." Simple as that. He drove into town the next morning and bought 3 sleeping bags and some extra food and a few basic items. He told no one. Not Danny. Not the woman at the hardware store who always wanted to chat. Nobody. He rearranged the spare room. He put a lock on the outside of the shed that connected to the back of the house, so the girls could move between spaces without being visible through the front windows. He started doing his grocery runs after dark. He built them a small, safe world inside his small world. And something remarkable happened inside that house over the following weeks. The girls started to trust him. Not just accept him, actually trust him. Sarah would sit at the kitchen table in the evenings while Marcus had his coffee, and she would ask him questions. About humans, about Earth, about why he helped them. He answered everything honestly, even the painful parts. He told her about the military, about his injury, about the years of drifting, about his mother. She listened to everything. One night she told him something that stopped him cold. She said that in her culture, in her world, protector was considered a sacred role, more sacred than a warrior, more valued than a general. She said her people had a word for it. She said the word translated roughly to the one who stays. She looked at him across the table. You are the one who stays, she said quietly. Marcus looked down at his coffee cup. I guess I am, he said. He still did not know they were princesses. But the universe was already watching. Far from Earth, something enormous was moving. An empire spanning 17 star systems had gone very quiet in the weeks after the crash. Quiet in the way that only happens when something has gone terribly wrong at the highest levels, and everyone is waiting to see what comes next. The Empress's name was Ethan Verl. In 17 systems, that name meant absolute authority. It meant fleets of warships that could darken a sky. It meant law that bent for no one. It meant centuries of careful rule built on power and precision, and an unwillingness to show weakness under any circumstances. Ethan Verl had shown weakness exactly once in her life. She had let her daughters travel without a full military escort. It was supposed to be a simple diplomatic run, a learning journey, the kind of thing young royals did to understand the smaller corners of the empire. Their ship was fast. Their crew was experienced. The odds of anything going wrong were, by every calculation, essentially zero. The odds were wrong. A technical failure triggered by a fringe energy storm sent their small vessel spinning out of controlled space. The emergency pod launched automatically. 3 young princesses were ejected into the dark at speeds that outran any immediate rescue effort. The tracking signal lasted 6 hours before it failed. And then there was nothing. The Empress launched every resource she had. Search fleets, scout ships, information networks that stretched across dozens of worlds. She called in debts that powerful civilizations owed her. She offered rewards that entire planetary economies could not match. 3 months passed. Nothing. People around her started saying things quietly. Not to her face. Never to her face. But the whispers moved through her court like a slow, cold wind. That the princesses were gone. That the Empress, for the first time in a reign that had lasted longer than most civilizations remembered, had lost something she could not get back. Ethan Verl did not eat properly for 3 months. She did not sleep more than 2 hours at a time. She stood in the war room of her flagship and stared at star maps until her eyes ached, and her advisors stood silently behind her because none of them knew what to say. She was not just an empress looking for missing heirs. She was a mother looking for her children. And then, on a random Tuesday morning in Montana, Sarah made a mistake. It was a small mistake. She had been so careful for so long. They all had. But she had found one of Marcus's old laptops that he never used anymore, and she had spent 3 nights quietly building something in the background of its systems. A very faint signal, heavily encrypted, targeted at a frequency band that no human technology monitored. She was trying to send a message home. She did not know that the Empire's search had recently expanded to include monitoring for exactly that kind of encrypted signal across previously uncharted regions. The message lasted 11 seconds before Sira shut it down. 11 seconds was enough. On the bridge of the Empress's flagship, a single alert light turned red. Ethan Verrill crossed the bridge in 4 steps. She looked at the data. She looked at it again. Her chief navigator confirmed the coordinates twice, because the results were so unexpected that standard protocol required double verification. A small blue planet, third orbit from a mid-range star, on the absolute outer edge of charted space. A planet so minor that most imperial maps did not even include it by name. Just a designation number. The Empress stared at the coordinates for a long time. Then she turned to her fleet commander. Her voice was very controlled, very quiet. "Set course," she said. "Maximum speed." She paused. "And tell no one outside this bridge where we are going." The fleet commander nodded and moved immediately. Everyone on that bridge moved immediately, because the Empress's quiet voice was always more serious than her loud one. Back in Montana, Marcus was teaching Lyra how to make pancakes. He had no idea the most powerful fleet in 17 star systems had just turned in his direction. The ships appeared in Earth orbit on a Wednesday morning. No warning, no announcement, nothing on any radar system that human technology could interpret with any clarity. Just 17 objects suddenly present in low orbit, holding perfectly still, utterly silent, massive in a way that made every satellite image that caught them look like a mistake. Governments around the world went into immediate crisis mode. Emergency sessions, military alerts, communication attempts that went nowhere. The internet exploded within minutes. Every news channel on the planet was broadcasting live footage from observatories and telescopes, and phone cameras pointed at the sky. The ships just waited. They were not threatening. They made no aggressive moves. They simply existed in Earth orbit with the calm certainty of something that does not need to threaten anyone, because the statement of their presence alone is sufficient. Marcus saw the news on his kitchen television at 6:45 in the morning. He was halfway through his first coffee. He set the mug down very carefully. He turned around slowly. Sira was standing in the kitchen doorway. She had been awake. She looked like she had been awake for a while. Her expression was something complicated, something that mixed relief and love and fear and guilt all together in a way that was painful to look at. "That is our mother," she said. Marcus looked at the television, then back at Sira. "Your mother," he said. "Yes." "Your mother," he said again, slower this time, "has 17 ships." "She has more than that," Sira said. "She only brought 17 here because this planet is small, and she did not want to cause a panic." Marcus looked back at the television, where every anchor on every channel was clearly already in a full panic. "Right," he said. Vale and Lyra appeared behind Sira. Lyra was holding the edge of Sira's sleeve the way she always did when she was nervous. All 3 of them were watching Marcus. He took a breath. "Does she know you're here?" he asked. "Specifically here. This house?" "She will find us quickly," Sira said. "Our signal signatures are not something she can miss at this range." "How long?" "Hours. Maybe less." Marcus nodded slowly. He stood up. He walked to the window and looked out at his yard. The same yard he had looked at every morning for 11 years. The frozen grass, the old truck, the tree line in the distance. Then he turned back around. "Then we should clean up," he said, "and make more coffee." Sira stared at him. Marcus, our mother is the Empress of 17 star systems. She commands the largest military force in this region of the galaxy. She has been searching for us for months, and she is. Scared, Marcus said simply. Zira stopped. She's your mother, Marcus said. She's been looking for you for months. She's not angry. She's scared. And she's going to arrive here, and she's going to see that you are safe and okay. And then she is going to want to know who kept you that way. He looked at all three of them. So let's be ready. The Empress's shuttle landed in Marcus's field at 9:47 in the morning. It was a small shuttle by Imperial standards, still larger than his house. It settled into the frost-covered grass with a sound like a deep breath and a wave of warm air that melted a perfect circle in the snow around it. The door opened. Ethan Verrill stepped out. She was tall, taller than Marcus expected. She wore no crown but did not need one. She carried authority the way a mountain carries weight. Her skin was deeper blue than her daughter's. Her eyes were the color of the space between stars. She wore dark silver armor that moved with her like it was part of her body. She walked across the field, and then she saw them. Zira, Vale, and Lyra standing on Marcus's crooked porch. The Empress stopped walking. For a long moment she did not move at all. And then Lyra jumped off the porch and ran across the frozen grass, and the most powerful ruler in 17 star systems dropped to her knees in the frost and caught her youngest daughter and held on with both arms and made no sound at all. Marcus stood in his doorway and watched. He did not say anything. Some moments do not need words. After the reunion, after the tears that the Empress would later deny had happened in front of her fleet commanders, after Lyra refused to let go for a very long time, and Vale stood close with her head resting against her mother's shoulder, and Zira held her mother's hand and spoke quietly for several long minutes explaining everything. The Empress looked up. She looked at the man standing in the doorway of the small house. He had not moved. He had not spoken. He had simply stood there and given them their moment without making it about himself in any way. Ethan Verrill studied him the way she studied everything. Completely, carefully, with the kind of focus that had helped her manage an empire for longer than this man's civilization had possessed electricity. She stood. She straightened. She walked across the field toward him. Marcus stepped off the porch to meet her. He did not stand at attention. He did not bow. He stood the way he always stood. Straight but easy. Present. Calm. They stopped a few feet apart. The Empress was several inches taller than him. She looked at him for a moment without speaking. Her expression was unreadable. You kept them safe, she said. Her English was perfect. Slightly formal, like someone who had learned it very quickly and very thoroughly. Probably in the last few hours. I did what I could, Marcus said. You hid them, fed them, protected them, for 3 months. Alone, with no resources and no authority and no obligation whatsoever. They needed help, Marcus said. That was enough reason. The Empress was quiet for a moment. In my empire, she said slowly, we have a class of individuals called the Varath, protectors of the royal family. It is the highest appointed position in the imperial system. It takes 15 years of training to qualify. It is given to perhaps one individual per generation. Marcus said nothing. He waited. My daughters tell me you have a word in your language, the Empress continued. A concept. The one who stays. Marcus glanced toward Zira. Zira was watching him with those silver-violet eyes. I've been called worse, he said. Something moved in the Empress's expression. Something very small but very real. Not quite a smile. Something closer to recognition. The look of someone who has spent a very long time in rooms full of people performing loyalty and has just encountered the thing itself. "I want to offer you something," she said. "Not as payment. I have learned already that you would refuse payment. As acknowledgement." She reached into her armor and produced something small. A flat silver disc with markings engraved across its surface. She held it out toward him. "This is an imperial mark of standing," she said. "It grants you recognized status within imperial space. It means that my ships know your name. That my people know what you did. It means that if you ever travel beyond this planet, you travel with the protection of this empire." Marcus looked at the disc. Then he looked up at her. "I appreciate that," he said. "But I have to be honest with you." The Empress raised an eyebrow. "I didn't do it for recognition," he said. "I didn't do it because of what they are. I didn't know what they were. I did it because they were young and they were scared and they were hurt." He paused. "I'd have done it for anyone." The Empress looked at him for a long moment. "Yes," she said quietly. "I know." She held the disc out again. "That is precisely why I am giving it to you." Marcus took it. He turned it over in his hand. The engravings caught the cold morning light. Lyra appeared at his side suddenly, slipping her small blue hand into his. She looked up at her mother and then up at Marcus and smiled the way she always smiled when the toaster went off. The Empress looked at her youngest daughter, then at the human man standing in the frost outside a small house on a forgotten planet at the edge of the galaxy. And the most powerful ruler in 17 star systems made a decision that her advisors would debate for years afterward. She stayed for dinner. Marcus made soup. And somewhere in the conversation that happened around that small kitchen table that night, between a human man with a crooked porch and a truck that barely ran and an empress who commanded fleets that could move stars, something shifted. Not politics, not strategy. Something quieter than that. The universe had sent 3 lost princesses to the one human who would never turn them away. And the Empress had come expecting to find a situation to manage. Instead, she found a home. And for the first time in longer than she could clearly remember, she felt what it was like to be in one. Here is the part nobody talks about. In the months that followed, Earth was quietly introduced to the imperial diplomatic network. Not through governments, not through military contact, through a single human man with no rank and no title, and a handwritten note from the Empress of 17 star systems. Sira returned to Earth 3 times in the following year. Vale sent messages every week. Lyra, reportedly, still asked Marcus to send recordings of the toaster. And Marcus Cole, the man the world forgot, the man who drove a broken truck and worked quiet job and never walked past something that needed help, was recorded in Imperial archives as the first recognized human Varath. The one who stays. The universe does not always reward power. Sometimes it rewards the people who simply choose, quietly and without hesitation, to show up. That is the most human thing of all. If this opened your eyes. So let's bring this all the way back. A man nobody expected anything from. 3 alien princesses with nowhere to go. And an empress who crossed 17 star systems looking for her children and found something she had never encountered in all her centuries of rule. A human who helped for no reason other than that it was the right thing to do. That is the story. That is the point. Not the ships. Not the empire. Not the politics. The point is that ordinary people doing extraordinary things, quietly, is the most powerful force in any universe. If this story hit you the way I think it did, hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this channel more than you know. Subscribe if you want more HFY stories that remind you why being human means something. And drop one word in the comments below. Just one word. The word that describes Marcus Cole to you. I want to see what word you choose. There is another story waiting for you next. A human crew, a dying alien civilization, and a decision made in the last 30 seconds that changed everything. You already know you want to watch it.